Hi, so in this video I'm going to show you how to deploy an application with OptiTune. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a virtual machine to test deploying the application. So here's a virtual machine. It's helpful when you're deploying an applications to use a virtual machine so you can undo changes and retest until you get it right. So what we have is we have a virtual, here's Hyper-V Manager. We have a virtual machine with the OptiTune agent installed, and here it is. And you can see here is the computer details page for this virtual machine. So the two things, when you want to create an install task for deploying an application, you go to the install tasks page, and you click Add. And if your application is a single file, you can do it all right here and just upload the installer right here. If the application is multiple files, then you'll need to download this tool, and basically it will zip up the application installer into a BVX file. And then you can deploy the BVX file to deploy the application. So the two main things you need when deploying an application is this installed when task condition, that is the, for example, an MSI product ID for the application. So if you go to add remove programs, you'll see a list of applications. This is the MSI product ID, or it might be an uninstall key. And then the second thing is the there's three things. The second thing is this file, the installer for the app. And then the third thing is going to be some command line arguments to install the app silently. This is very important because the OptiTune agent will be installing the application, and you don't want it to hang waiting for user input because there won't be any user input. So what we need to do is find out these pieces of information. What is the conditions for when it should be installed? And then what are the command line arguments to make sure it runs silently? So let's go onto the virtual machine, and we're going to download this FortiClient application. Okay, and we'll just download this one. I think this one requires special licensing, so for the demo we'll just deploy this one. But you can see the steps are very similar for any application you're deploying. So I'm going to save this to a special directory. We're going to basically prototype or test the deployment first. Okay, so now I've saved it. And now we need to find what are the silent install arguments for this application. So you can often just search. You could say FortiClient silent install, and people have often already documented it. So you could see, here's somebody who's already documented it. There's different ways to look at it. Okay, here we go. This is for their other application. Another resource you can look at is, what's it called? Chocolatey. So here's another example. This is a open source repository of applications. And you can look at this, they've already scripted installing this application. So let's see here. Where is it? Install. You go to Files, hit this, and you can see they've already figured out where is the URL for the application, and then what are the silent install arguments. So in this case, it's this. This is the silent install arguments. Whoops. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we need to find, first we're going to see if we can if we can install the application. So we're on this virtual machine. So we can install the application and then reset the virtual machine to a previous checkpoint to test it again if we need to. So I'm going to go in here. Now I'm going to say this exe name and then these two arguments that we got here. Now this is a test to make sure that what the OptiTune agent does will run the installer and it's not going to pause or wait for input and then it would just hang. And then also from doing this we'll be able to see what is the installed condition for the application, meaning when do we know it's been installed properly. Okay, so it's doing stuff and we're just going to wait. Okay, now you see it looks like it's paused. I'm not sure if it's expecting user input or not. Yeah, I don't think this is going to work. Okay, so this is not working. So you see the UI here is hung. It's not working. So I'm just going to cancel it. Now, one of the things I noticed is this application that we downloaded from their website is different from this application here. See how it's a different app. So let's try doing it a little differently. We're going to try downloading this file instead and see if it will work this way. So it might be that this is the full installer, which I think it is. So I'm going to save it to this test directory. And then we're going to try the other, with the same arguments, we're going to try this other installer. Okay, so we're going to try this one. And with these two arguments. Without the apostrophes. Okay, now let's see what happens. Oh, okay. We need to use the 64-bit one. Okay. You're getting to really see how error prone this is. Okay. So wait for this one to download. Okay. Now we're gonna run this one, this 64-bit one, because this virtual PC is a 64-bit machine. There's a 64-bit one. Quiet / no restart. Okay, now let's see if this will go all the way through without prompting for input. This is looking better. It's not showing any UI. I'm guessing this one actually worked. So we could look in Task Manager, see if anything's still happening, or if it's already done. I think it's unclear. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, it's working. So it's working silently without showing any input. It's still running. Okay, now I think it's done. So now, there it is. Okay, so that was successful. Okay, so now we know what to call. It's to call this application 64-bit with these parameters. So that's the first bit of information. So now what you can do when you're creating, let's start filling this out while we're here. Let's make sure we're still logged in. Okay, I'm going to call it FortiClient VPN. Here's a description. Installs VPN client. We could say some. We could say, look, it requires Windows 10 64-bit. If you want to, it's up to you. I'll say OK. So this is a requirement that has to run. It has to exist before we can even install it. We don't know how to. We don't know the conditions for when it's installed. We're going to find that out next. And then we can either upload that installer file here, or since it's already publicly available, let's see here. Where was I? So here I am on another PC. Just it's a little confusing. Let's get to that. Okay, so here's the actual URL for the installer. So in our OptiTune task, you can just put it right here. And this should work. And then we're going to copy this. This is the path to the exe on the web. So you can upload it here, or you can just store it here. So this will host it with OptiTune. This is easier because it's hosted at their site. And you have to specify, again, the relative path. And you have to specify the command line arguments. Where are we? Whoops. Getting confused. There we are. No quotes. And you'll notice if we try to save it, it's going to say at least one install condition needs to be specified. So we need to find how it's installed. So there's several ways you can do this. We're going to open the registry editor. And then we're going to go dive down. It's 64-bit application. So we're going to go through here. See, you can see the path I'm going to up here. Where is it? Windows, current version, uninstall. Sometimes it'll jump out at you. This might be it. Yep, here it is. Okay, so we can see it's an MSI application. So in some cases, this is the key thing here. This is the uninstall key. So you have two ways to specify to OptiTune how to identify that the app's installed. You can use the uninstall key, which would be like this, or this happens to also be an MSI product ID. It's the same ID. So we're gonna do the simpler way and say it's MSI product ID. I'm gonna go here and we say add MSI product. Hit that, and then hit that, and then hit OK. OK. So it's saying this is how you know when the app has been successfully installed. OK, looks good. So now let's give it a try. I'm going to save this task. There it is, FortiClient VPN. And the next thing we're going to do, we've already installed it on the machine. And so we're going to reset all of this back to how it was before we started doing this stuff. And then we can test it. And it might take several tries to test it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut down the virtual machine. Okay, shutting it down. Okay. And then you could see here in our list of computers, there it is, it's been shut down. It was shut down. And this should refresh soon. Okay, see now it's showing not connected, system shutting down. So now what we're going to do is I've created these checkpoints on the virtual machine, and I'm going to reset to this checkpoint when I just installed the OptiTune agent. So I hit apply. I'm just going to hit apply. Okay, and then I'm going to start it up again. Where we go? We have to click this. Hit start. Okay. Now I'm going to look at this virtual machine again. Okay. And now we'll just double check, make sure the app is not installed at all. Okay, so it's not installed at all. If you go to we'll just double check. See, it's definitely not installed. It's just this, the OptiTune agent. Okay, now we're going to do a test deployment through OptiTune of deploying the app. So you can either deploy an app to a group of computers, or you can deploy an app to a single computer. So we have this install task. Here it is, FortiClient VPN that we just set up. I'm going to go back. So now I'm going to hit this checkbox here, and I'm going to hit deploy. And now I don't want to deploy it to every computer in this test org. I'm going to find that single computer, which is the virtual machine. There it is. And now the schedule, it's up to you. Going back here, if you wanted to deploy it to a group of computers, you'd do that here. You'd find, like I could say, deploy it to all desktops or all laptops or all servers, or deploy it to this, group in the hierarchy, the sales department. But I'm just deploying it to this one computer here. And then the schedule, it's up to you. We could do a one-time deployment or startup, which means that we'll deploy it every time the configuration is loaded, or every time the computer restarts. So I'm going to do it once before. I'm going to give it a deadline. I'm going to say, let's try it. Or, you could do once after. That's also an easy way to do it. Whoops, let me remove this. Say once after. So I'm going to say once after a time in the past. Say an hour ago. So it'll try to do the deployment just one time. And we're going to see what happens. So once I hit save, it should start doing it. Okay. So now we can go back to the computer. See, you can actually see what it's doing here. There it is. It's running that install task. We're going to see what happens, because it has to download. See, it's downloading the installer, so you can see in real time what the OptiTune agent is doing. And this will probably take a couple minutes. And you can also look, here we are on the machine, and the OptiTune agent's running in the background. And we'll take a look here as well. I don't see it. Oh, I see it. It's running it now. It's OptiTune agent's running the app. Here we go. Now we're getting notified here. It's running it with these parameters that we specified. Oh, look, it's working. I think it's almost done. The setup app's still running. Okay, now it's done. Setup app has stopped running. Okay, this one finished and it succeeded. So now this deployment was successful. And that wasn't too hard. The main thing was finding out how to install the app. So now we're going to go to our deployments page. So here we go. It succeeded here. So that means it ran, downloaded, and it detected that installed it correctly. Okay, so that was it. And now you can see I've not done anything here manually. It was just the OptiTune agent installing it silently. And everything went pretty smoothly. So here you go. And as I say before, if you initially you want to test it just installing it to one particular computer, but then when you're doing a wider rollout, you just let's see here, you would deploy it to a bunch of computers, like a small group of computers. So initially we're just deploying it to this one computer. Then you've got it working, you've tested it, you do another deployment to a small group of computers, and then finally you do a wider rollout to a large number of computers. So that concludes this demo of how you package an application. So just to review, you enter in the name, the description. The important thing is finding the installed conditions, and in this case it's an MSI product, and then a path to download the installer, or you can upload it here if you want to, and then the file name of the installer, which in this case it's the same thing here, and then some arguments for how to run it silently. And as you can see, it took us a few tries to find the right setup to run to get it to work properly. So I hope this was helpful.